Hi, I'm Luke and I'm a data manager. I recently began a new position working at the Norwegian Meteorological Institute in Oslo, but I spent the last 3 years of my life living at the top of the world and working for the University Centre in Svalbard in Longyearbyen. It was my job to be the main data manager for the Nansen Legacy project, which, amongst other things, investigates the impact that climate change is having on the northern Barents Sea. The northern Barents Sea is one of the fastest warming places on the planet, with average annual temperatures today around 4 to 5 degrees warmer than they were in the 1970s. The project has involved around 280 people from 10 of Norway's top research institutions. This includes geologists, geophysicists, biologists, chemists and engineers, and it's been part of my job to help all of these people publish their data in a way that is in line with the fair data management principles. The scientific community is growing increasingly aware of the importance of publishing fair data. A biologist needs to know how to create Darwin Core Archives for the biodiversity data, as well as CF-NetCDF files for their geoscientific data. But making sure that your data are fully compliant with the fair data management principles is not easy. I've been working as a data manager for 3 years now, and I'm still learning new things. Scientists are already busy, so it's our job as data managers to make the process of publishing data as easy as possible. I work with scientists every day, and some of the main difficulties that they encounter when trying to create Darwin Core Archives is knowing which cores and extensions they should include for their data, and which column headers they should include and which are required to be included for each of these cores and extensions. This information is not easy to find, and this is something that I would encourage the community to address. To help with this problem, I've developed an Excel template generator that should make this process a lot easier. Let me pull up my computer and show you how it works. So this is the Nansen Legacy template generator. It's hosted on NorDataNet, which is the Norwegian Scientific Data Network. I'll share a link to this page with you. So let's start at the top. We have different configurations. I'm going to focus on the Darwin Core configuration in this case, but it's worth noting that there is also a CF-NetCDF file designed to help people create CF-NetCDF files. Then we also have different sub-configurations. This is based on what type of core the user wants to include within their Darwin Core archive, whether it's sampling event data with an event core or occurrence core data. It's relatively easy to add more sub-configurations if that's what people want. I'll focus on sampling event data. The form below is divided into 2 separate sections, one for the event core and one for the occurrence extension, which is a compulsory extension in this case. Each of these sections will become a separate sheet within the Excel template that the user will create. It's relatively easy to add sheets for different extensions. We can just select these buttons here. And if I scroll down, we can see the additional extension has been added. Then we can remove it again just as easily. Each section includes terms that have descriptions that appear when you hover over them. These terms and descriptions have been pulled from these source XML files, such as the one that you can see here, for different extensions that are registered with GBIF. Returning to the template generator now, you might remember, as I said, it's difficult for people to know what terms they have to include in their Darwin Core archive in each core and extension. Well, here, we tell the users exactly which terms are required and recommended. Now, one thing that I would like to point out is that these requirements are not specified in the source XML files, so I've had to hard-code them into the template generator in this case. It would be great if these requirements were added into the source XML files. So the user can go ahead and select which terms they like. Under suggestions is a full list of other terms which are acceptable under that extension. And finally, the user has the option to include additional terms. Perhaps the user wants to include a CF standard name for seawater temperature for each event. So we can search for that here. There's a lot of different CF standard names, but we can select what is a suitable one for us. And we scroll back to the top, select Add Fields, and it appears here. This term cannot be included within the event core, but many scientists prefer to record this information side by side with each event, at least when they're initially recording the data. And they can map these measurements later across to, for example, an extended measurement or facts extension, or even better, they can dump these data into a CF netcdf file. So the goal here in this case is to provide the user with the flexibility to include what they want in a standardized way. They can also select from a full range of Darwin Core terms. All of these terms here are taken from this location on GitHub. And then we've also added some more terms that we have found useful throughout the Nansen Legacy project. Perhaps information about who the principal investigator is for that sample, for example, or things related to Arctic or more broadly marine research cruises, for example, this type of sea ice core. When the user has finished selecting which terms that they want to include, we can hit Generate, and an XLSX file is downloaded. In the template that has been created, you can see we have separate sheets, one for each extension or core that should be included. And each term selected has become one of the column headers here. If you select a cell in one of the columns, you have a description for what that term is. And there are also cell restrictions. So let's say, for example, I try to input an invalid latitude. I get an error message here that prevents me from doing so. And then, in a flash, the data have been entered. Creating a Darwin Core Archive from these is then quite easy. My preferred method is to show this hidden row here. This has been hidden to discourage someone from editing it. You can then delete all the header rows, remove any columns that you don't need, and save each sheet out as a CSV file. Then we need to find one of GBIF's integrated publishing toolkits. You can find where they're hosted here and click on them on the map. Find somewhere near you and ask if they can set up an account for you. I'm going to show this process on a test IPT, which is likely going to look a little bit different from what you're using. So I'm working with sampling event data. First, I need to upload each of my source CSV files. Then we need to map each of our column headers in our source data to terms that are acceptable within that extension or core. So we can do first for the event core. And what we can see is that because we've used this template generator and because we've already used acceptable terms when recording our data, all of these columns have been auto-mapped in this case. But you should just scroll down for a sanity check anyway. Once this has been done, you just need to add some metadata. So I'll go through and fill in some of this. When you've done that, you've changed the visibility to public, and you can go and publish your data. Go back to the resource here by selecting its title. Then we need to register it with GBIF. And finally, if we like to make our data available via other networks as well, we can do that here by assigning networks, for example, OBIS. And you're done, as simple as that. There are many ways that this tool can be improved, and this is where you might be able to help. One limitation is that the cell restrictions have had to be, in many cases, hard-coded into the template generator. Ideally, the restrictions and requirements associated with each term would be hard-coded into the source XML files. Therefore, when people like me develop tools on top of these source files, we can make sure that we are having the same requirements and restrictions that you're having in, for example, the integrated publishing toolkit. I would also be very grateful if you could promote this template generator and encourage the scientists that you work with to use it. Perhaps you could include a link to the template generator on your institution or project website, for example. We'll make sure that we keep the version on NoDataNet up to date with all the latest developments. If you want to contribute more actively, the code is hosted on GitHub. You can raise an issue if you see anything that needs fixing, or perhaps you have some ideas on how the template generator can be improved. I know that there are a number of people watching this video who know far more about Darwin Core than I do, so if you want to be even more involved, I would love to collaborate, so please get in touch. Let's work together on this.